What's up, YouTube? Usually when we do these interviews, I like to talk to wrestlers, but like today I feel like I want to talk to a celebrity, like I'm trying to think of some sisters that are like really famous. Like there's Kim, and then there's Chloe, then there's Courtney, then there's Maddie. Maddie. Oh, Maddie. Yeah, today we're here with Maddie Wrenkowski. She's one of the best independent wrestlers in Texas, in the whole world. And now she's on the channel. What's up, Maddie?
I like that intro. It was well suiting. Best in the world.
Yes, of course, best in the world. Actually, I've been wanting to talk to you for such a long time now, so it's great to have you on. How's your day going?
It's good. I mean, living. I watched a couple of your videos and I see you're like begging Shane Taylor to be in his group, but like I haven't gotten you've never asked me to hang out with me or be in my group.
I mean, I would love to be in your group, but you're kind of in Texas and I'm in Maryland, so like it's kind of far. So I don't know if I can travel there,
It's the thought that counts, isn't it? So
yes, that's true. That's true. Okay, well, could I join your group?
No.
Can I join the clique?
No, you just asked second. Actually, wow. It's like you asked fourth or fifth, because how many times did you ask them?
Just 2, 3, maybe 7 times.
Yeah, so.
Okay,
I'm nobody's eighth choice.
Fine, okay, whatever. But I wanted to talk to you today because today's actually a super special day for you because it's actually your 2-year anniversary of being in the business. So, and also your debut was also against Jazz, which is the craziest thing in the world. Jazz, insane.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your time from starting as a wrestler to where you are right now.
Yeah, so obviously starting off, first independent competitor ever was Jazz, like you said. It was terrifying. That match was a student versus trainer match, and the whole time she just kept telling me, in the week leading up, I only taught you some of what I know, not all of what I know. So she was playing those mind games before. So she definitely got me. She won the mind game and she won the match. So it was a very humbling introduction to the world of pro wrestling and where I'm at now. I have a title with PPW, longest reigning, also first ever. I know, right? Just that good.
Impressive.
I know, right? I've done work for a couple major promotions. I was in, I did a couple extra roles for WWE and WWE NXT, January of 2020, right before the pandemic hit. I've done some work for Impact when they came down here to San Antonio, and I have been most featured on AEW Elevation and AEW Dark. I'm in the intro, so I'm kind of a big deal.
I wouldn't really say kind of. I'd say a pretty big deal, actually. I mean,
well,
pretty
you
impressive.
said it.
I mean, yeah, I am gonna say only 2 years in. Some people still take a year and a half just to finish training. So when it comes to you in training, what's your story of getting into the wrestling business? When did you start training?
Yeah, so I did start training a little bit before my debut. Basically how it all came about is I just graduated college and a whole bunch of stuff happened. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna become a wrestler. So I went down to Reality of Wrestling, which is Booker T's school in Houston. I did a fantasy camp with him, and I just decided Houston was not it for me. And it just so happened that I met Gino Medina there, and he's actually the one who invited me to a show in San Antonio, which is where I started my training. And he introduced me to Chris Marvel, who is the guy who trained me. And so it was a weird windabout way, but I ended up here in San Antonio and I trained with him, and I was fortunate enough that he actually gave a shit. I don't know if I can say that, but I did. About his students. So he'd actually brought he let Thunder Rosa come in and train, and so that was my introduction to Thunder Rosa. And then he actually brought in Jazz and Rodney Mack and Funaki to be trainers at Hybrid. So I was very, very fortunate with the bunch that I started with. A whole bunch of information, knowledge, and Ricardo Rodriguez was also there. So promo king. Yeah, so I was very, very fortunate with my training in the background, because they come from different like styles of wrestling. Like Marvel is very technical. Jazz and Rodney are like, hey, I'm gonna kick your ass. Funaki is also very technical. But I was very, very fortunate in my training.
Yeah, it sounds like it. That's like a pretty star-studded lineup right there. But you say you graduated college first before you became a pro wrestler. Was wrestling something you wanted to do like your whole life, or your parents were like, nah, like go to school first, get the education, then become a wrestler? Or was it kind of like while you're in college, you're like, not gonna use this degree, might as well just jump into a ring?
So, I mean, as you know, when you're in college, like right around midterms and finals, it's like your whole world is like blowing up. You're like, when did we learn this? I'm supposed to know this. The test is tomorrow.
Yeah.
So right around that time, I was like, I'm just gonna quit. I'm gonna become a pro wrestler. And that happened like without fail every single midterms and finals. And my mom's like, no, you're not. You're going to get your degree and then you can ruin your life. And I said, bet. So I went and got my degree. And then at that point, I had actually gotten a job. But what I call fate, there was actually a natural disaster where I was supposed to go. So they were like, you can either wait or like we can relocate you somewhere else. And so I was like, no, that's fate. I'm supposed to go. I'm going to go find a wrestling school. And that's what I did.
I mean, yeah, but something like that happens, like you kind of got to look at the sign and like, well, I think this is supposed to be for a reason. So yeah, smart. What was your major, by the way?
I graduated with a Bachelor of Science with a focus on wildlife biology. So I was just going to be outside.
That's different. Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about that for a little bit. So like, what did you initially wanted to do with that degree? That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. So I started off like probably 50% of children. I wanted to be a veterinarian.
Sure. So did I.
Exactly. And we had a ton of dogs growing up. Like we always had at least 3 for some reason. But when I started getting older, and the dogs obviously got older, like whenever they would get hurt, I was like, ooh, blood, dog blood. And then when you have to eventually put them down, I was like, oh my God, this is the worst feeling I've ever experienced in my life. Like, it's traumatic. And so I was like, I don't think I can do that. Like, I don't think that I can put a dog down. Not even a dog. I don't even think I can put someone's family member down, because that's what they are. And my guidance counselor was like, it's just part of the job. Like, I've talked to vets before, and like, it's just something that like you end up getting used to. It's not as intense. Like later on, I'm like, I don't think I want to get used to that. Like, I don't think I want to be comfortable doing that. So I was like, left turn. What other avenue can I help animals in? So that's where I found wildlife biology. Basically, my schooling and what I would be doing is working in like a national park. I didn't want to do the research thing. Math is not my forte. So
yes, sir, I understand that.
So basically, in my mind, I wanted to work with animals in the wild, because we humans suck. Everyone knows it. We just take their land, we take their homes, and then we're like, what? Why the hell is this animal out in the middle of nowhere? I'm like, because you just built your home where his was. So it's basically, I wanted to find that balance, that harmonious balance, which is why we have like state parks, national parks, things like that, to where the animals can have like that kind of refuge, but we can also enjoy it as well, and obviously pay for it, so that we can go back and fund these animals living and taken care of and whatnot. So yeah.
Wow, now that's like completely different from like wildlife to Kardashian pro wrestler. That's a big transition.
Well, you know.
So to talk about the Kardashians, how long have you been watching the Kardashians? Because I'm sure you have clearly been probably an avid watcher of that television show.
Yeah, so growing up, I used to watch the Kardashians all the time. It was like, because back then, like, DVR was being invented. So I could just record them and I could watch them. I love binge watching television. So I did that, and every time a new season would come out, they would always replay the old season. So I watched it very frequently. However, I actually have not watched an episode of Keeping Up with Kardashians in like 2 years. I know, listen to this. I'm so smart that I knew that people who consumed wrestling content were so dumb that they just wanted someone who looked good. And so I knew breaking into this business that I had to portray and emulate these high status people in order for people to, one, take a look at me, and two, be interested in what I'm doing. And now that I have their attention, the Kardashians are kind of dead and the truth has been revealed. So it's time to actually come into reality. So yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's an origin story I did not expect. So, looking at the character and the person, Maddie. So, where's the difference between the two? Because like you seem to have a lot of personality, but also your character does as well. So, like, where's the difference between the two?
So, I would probably say that there is not much of a difference. Again, Chris Marvel gives a shit about his students, so he used to bring in like people to do seminars for us. And I was, again, very fortunate that Eddie Kingston was he was my first seminar. And the biggest takeaway I had from him was, to be successful in this business, you have to be real and you have to be genuine. And I am real. Like, I am Maddie. Like, I think the biggest proponent of what I exude is that I'm always going to say what I have to say. Like a lot of times, like I'll say what I want. Like if I see something, I'm like, I feel differently. I'm going to say something. Granted, I know I'm going to have to deal with the consequences, but I'm still going to say it. Like I'm still going to, if someone thinks they're going to kick my ass, like I'm still going to talk shit. Even if I know I'm going to lose, I'm still going to talk shit. That's just real. If I get my ass kicked, I get my ass kicked. Like that's real. That's me. Like I always grew up, like my dad was like, if someone hits you, you hit them back harder. Like, don't take shit. And that's just what has come of this. It has given me a realm to actually do so and actually hurt people and hit people. And it's not illegal, so.
Hell yeah. Awesome. So like looking at like your in-ring style, right? I'm actually looking at like one of your like finishing moves right now. So it's like a sit-down face buster, and you get like a lot of elevation on that jump. So like, were you ever like an athlete in high school, or is wrestling your first ever like athletic endeavor?
So I pretty much was doing sports from like the time I could walk, run. We were a very athletic family. However, like it's weird, but like our main focus was like running, which is like cross country track. So everyone's like, "Oh, were you a cheerleader?" No, that's not me. It's not my personality. Never. No, it's not. I'm not a happy person. So not a cheerleader, not a dancer, nothing like that. It was running, and the fact that I'm fortunate enough with the genetics that I do have to be that flexible and to get that kind of height is like, y'all are welcome. I'm letting you witness my greatness. But that move that you're speaking of, you're welcome. That move that you're speaking of is actually called the Jazz Stinger. And is actually one of the moves that she bestowed upon me. One of them, because I can't have all of them because she has children to pass them down to. But I'm very fortunate to get one that I execute perfectly enough to draw people's attention. Because I don't think I could do the bitch plant.
I mean, like, you could try it. You never know. Give it a shot. But like you mentioned Jazz. You mentioned that you actually worked with the WWE, some extra work. So like, tell me, like, how did you get to that point where you're like backstage at WWE?
Yeah, so again, fortunate enough to be with Chris Marvel, and Funaki is one of the trainers at Hybrid still, and he is, well, back before COVID, he did a lot of announcing there, and so he's actually, I believe, the Japanese commentator, so he's still with WWE, and he still like did stuff with them, and the loop that I got to go on was the loop right around Royal Rumble and the Worlds Collide. They did those in Texas. So Funaki was going to be there. Funaki was commentating, and he kind of got us that in. And I did four different shows. We started off in Dallas at SmackDown. Friday, SmackDown. Come on, Madison. We did Raw, and that was crazy because it's just weird. It's weird to watch this on television, and it looks so big and so grandeur. And then you go in and you're like it's so empty. Like, it was so small. And then the people get in there and it's so huge. It's just weird, the transformation. Then the next day was Worlds Collide, which I got to do security for. So like,
did you have to punch anyone in the face? I know you said your dad would like tell you to punch someone.
Yeah, unfortunately, no. But I did a pull apart with Dakota Kai and Tegan Knox. So like, I probably saved their lives from pulling them apart.
Probably did.
No deal. Yeah. And then the next day was the Royal Rumble, which is the one that Edge came back on. And that was surreal because there was already so many people in this. I think it was like, I don't know if it was Minute Maid Park in Houston, but there were so many people. And then as soon as his music hit, it was just like a roar. Like the whole entire stadium erupted, and it was like enough to give you like goosebumps. And then of course the Monday Night Raw after in San Antonio, he came out and did a promo, and people were like crying. It was very CM Punk-esque now, but it was surreal. Like you could feel the people's energy. Like it was wild.
Did you get to meet any like the bigger stars backstage as well?
Yeah, so we got to be backstage and like around them and whatnot. Granted, it was a little bit different there than I experienced at AEW. There, you're there for a reason, and they make it very apparent. So it's kind of like stay out of people's way, be seen, not heard, type of vibe. But it's understandable. I mean, no one really wants people to like come up to them and be like, "Oh my God, you're my hero." But you're like there, you're professionals, and you just act like it there. So you see a lot of them, and it's crazy because like I grew up watching Randy Orton, but to like see him in person and like catering, like he is huge. Like it is surreal. I was like, God dang. Why did the TV does not like show that? It was wild. And like Zelina Vega is so small, like, and I guess I just never really realized it, but it's cool to see them and then see them on TV. But it was definitely a different experience than what I've had at AEW.
Of course. So like to kind of ask you like one of the more like basic questions, who were like some of your favorite wrestlers growing up?
Yeah, so the first wrestlers that actually caught my attention were Lita and the Hardy Boys, so Team Extreme. Yeah, those were the ones who were like, yo, this is cool. Those were the ones that I would practice their moves or actually get the moves practiced on me with my brother. So that's kind of what started it. Then he started getting the video games. And of course, back then you couldn't really be a woman in the video game except for like maybe 2 different matches. So then I discovered my new favorite, Scotty 2 Hotty. That is like one of the only ones that I would play as. And it may or may not have been just because I could do a worm finisher like in the game. Like I was like that. So then he became one of my favorites. And then kind of as I got older, I got a little too cool for school. So I stopped watching wrestling. And then when NXT did their Texas tour, my brother took me to the one in Austin, and I got to see Big Cass and Enzo come out. And again, literally the whole crowd was repeating after them. And it was like, holy shit, these guys have power. I want that. So then Enzo Amore became one of my favorites just because he was so entertaining. Like he kept people watching. Like I would literally tune in just to see what nonsense was going to come out of his mouth. And usually it was not disappointing. Like in that 205 Live thing when he had them all around the ring and he was just like
roasting all of them.
Exactly. And I'm like, yo, dude, there's like
Funniest
50
thing
dudes out there. Yeah. You could definitely get your ass kicked. But he still did it. And that's kind of
Nice.
like, I'm like, respect. So now I just say what I want. And if I get my ass, I get my ass kicked.
Yeah, it seems to seem like you think like character is like definitely a lot more important than maybe just like in-ring components. Like for you, like and for like people that are coming up in independency, what would you say is like more important, like the character or like the actual wrestling?
The character. Because you think about who you loved growing up, and you hear a lot about Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Mankind. Granted, some of them could wrestle well, but you fell in love with them because of their character, because of the moments that I gave you. I'm sorry, I love you. Like, it wasn't about the sweet chin music, it was about the moment. So it's like that alone, like emotion will get more people than doing flips. Like, of course, like even in independent shows, you'll have a card that will be very high flying, very fast paced and whatnot. And the crowd's like, yeah, this is awesome. And then they leave and they're like, oh yeah, that one flippy guy. Who? The guy, he did like the 450 and the other flip and then the springboard. But then you have the people and you're like, holy shoot, this dude, like, who is he? He just beat the shit out of this guy. Like, you think about, who is it? Obviously now my mind is drawing a blank. But like when I think about certain people, like I think about what they do. Like Walter, for instance, the first thing I think of is, oh, my chest. Yes. Like, you're like, that's Walter. Or like Suzuki. Like, I was very fortunate enough, not this weekend, but the last, to be in San Francisco. And him and Daniel Garcia, like the crowd was so into their match, but it wasn't like very flippy. It was very technical. It was very slow. They chopped the shit out of each other. They were forearming the crap out of each other. And that's what the crowd like walked away with. They were like, oh my God. Because then you saw Daniel Garcia and he was like marked up. And even I think Daniel Bryan, they have, it's like that's what the people remember. They register and they remember things that they can have empathy for, because everyone knows what it feels like to get slapped. Everyone knows what it feels like, but people don't always know, like, oh, I bet that would hurt if someone did a flip and landed on me. Like, you don't know how that feels, because most people in their life will not encounter that, but you know what it feels like to have a best friend who turns their back on you, or get like betrayed, or get the rug pulled out from under you, or get cheated out of a win. Like, you know what that feels like. You know what it feels like to get your arm twisted or whatever. I don't know, but long story short.
I can say I never felt someone ever like do a flip and then land on my chest before. I don't think I've ever felt that. So fair enough.
Exactly. Like, everyone's been kicked in the stomach. Like, you know what that feels like.
Yeah, but never like I never decided to jump off something and do like 10,000 flips and just land on a guy. So fair. No, I never tried. Maybe next week we'll see how life goes. What's like your favorite match of your career so far? Because like again, you've only been wrestling like debut wise 2 years, so there has been like a good amount of matches in between that. So what's been your favorite, or some of your favorites at least?
Yeah, so of course, like the student versus trainer, student versus mentor, like me and Jazz was obviously just like being the first match itself, and having her, like this woman that we used to watch on television, and my brother used to put me in the bitch clan. Like, having her be my first match was like absolutely insane. And obviously, I'm gonna remember that one forever. Being able to step in the ring with Thunder is also one that I'm really appreciative of. But I think one of my favorites, that's probably a little bit higher, is going to be, I got to do like a little, like, it was a 2-match series. I don't know if there'll ever be a third, on AEW with Leva Bates. And that's actually where I got my first win in AEW. So I think that one is one of my favorites, not just because of the win, but like kind of because I got the win, but also it was just a very fun, like, I got to kind of show more personality than just wrestle. Like they trusted me enough to be who I am. So I really liked that. I liked beating the shit out of Leva.
I mean, I'm sure you did.
Ripping up Young Bucks books. Like,
yeah, I mean, getting the W, of course. I mean, like that's kind of part of wrestling. You gotta get the win. But I also want to talk about. I want to talk about the fact that you recently had like an opportunity to become the NWA Women's World Champion against Camille. After wrestling for that title, is there somewhere in the wrestling business that like if they throw you a bag of money right now, you're like, all right, I'm signing that contract. If it's the NWA, if it's AEW, WWE, Impact Wrestling.
Yeah, so I would definitely sign a contract.
Heck yeah.
I think, no, I don't want it. They can keep their money.
Who wants money?
I just want to wrestle free. I'll wrestle free. No, I would love to be contracted. I think that when you're contracted, you have a more stable platform. And at that point, you're able to kind of round out the edges. Being an independent wrestler, there's only so much I can do. Like I can control myself, but I can't control the other promoters and what direction they want things to go. Because obviously people in California aren't going to be like, oh, well, I saw Madi do this at that one promotion. Like, let's keep that story she has going. Like, they're going to be like, this is what I want you to do. Like, there's no continuation from promotion to promotion. So there's no really way to build that solid, like, story. And I can try, but not everyone is able to follow, if that makes any sense.
No,
yeah, I would definitely love to be signed, just to kind of cement myself a little bit more in this business.
But where would you want to go?
I'm not gonna say, because then, like, what if someone else sees this and they're like, oh, she doesn't want to go here. Like, I'm not stupid.
Smart. So I wanted to bring up the fact that you talk about your brother a lot because you guys are both wrestling fans. Has he actually came to watch you wrestle before, and what do you think of it?
Yeah, he definitely has. I think he is one of my biggest supporters and also one of my biggest critics. But he likes it. He's definitely sends me a lot of stuff in the wrestling world and sends me ideas. And he's actually the one who designs my gear. So it's definitely a family business here. He designs the gear, and my mom actually makes my gear.
Okay.
So I keep my family close. I call them my top volunteers because they don't get paid and we don't offer insurance here. So they're volunteers.
I mean, understandably. I mean, sometimes it is what it is.
That's what family's for, free labor.
Exactly. What else are they for?
I don't know. I haven't figured that out yet.
One day, we'll figure it out. But the last question I wanted to ask, because again, this is like 2 years since you started debuting on the independent scene. What's one word that you would use to describe your wrestling career so far?
One word?
Just one. Yeah, I know, it's heavy loaded.
Fortunate.
Nice. Why? I think I know why, but why?
You all have been fortunate enough to follow. No, I definitely, as I've said throughout the interview, very fortunate to have that base training. Some people's basics in wrestling is shit, and so in turn they wrestle like shit. I'm fortunate enough to have a solid base. I know so. I can't even say I think so. I've had a solid base. I had a solid training. And then I'm fortunate to have met the people that I have who have set me up to kind of be seen. Now at that point, I feel like it's my time to like put in some more work. And I'm very fortunate to have met the people that I have again, because in this world, not even just the wrestling world, life is about connections and networking. And this is a business. And so again, the word of the day is fortunate. I'm very fortunate. So now let's just get the wheels rolling, because I have to actually have some fruition from this fortune, at some point.
Oh yeah, no, and I definitely think you will. So where can fans follow you on social media if they don't already?
Yeah, I am on Instagram, Twitter, what's the other thing? Facebook, all under Madi_Wrenkowski. That's MADI_WRENKOWSKI. If you can spell it, you can find it. I also have merch on Big Cartel and on Pro Wrestling Tees. I am also on Cameo. So like pay me to like send you a video.
Fair enough. I mean, like, I guess the last thing I can really ask, can I also join your group again?
No. But you can buy a Cameo if you want, and I'll be like, hey, no.
We going up like 1,000. I'ma flex just like a muscle man Malcolm. We going up like 1,000. I'ma flex just like a muscle man Malcolm. When it just like 1, 2, 3. If you like the channel, this will squeeze. If you like the channel, this will squeeze. If you like the channel, this will squeeze.